Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Erasmus Expeditions. We are here tonight with a very special help action. This is episode number 45. We're going to be talking tonight about building confidence. I'm very excited because this is something that I definitely need some guidance, some help on. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of the answers that are going to come out of this discussion tonight. And I'm really excited to get the chance to sit down and talk with my guest this evening, though she's not new to the channel because I did manage to get her into a game recently that was here on the channel, but certainly fresh to the channel. I'm very happy to welcome my guest, Cari, you son of a bitch. How are you?
I am phenomenal. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Like I said, I'm just getting over kind of being sick. So I'd rather be on this side of it though than the going down the rabbit hole.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep. I get you. I get you for sure.
That will be the reason for my extra sultry, sexy voice this evening.
Yeah.
So you're all very welcome.
When I get sick, I call it the Demi Moore voice. Like it's that husky kind of
yeah. I tease my wife sometimes whenever she goes through it, and I call her Kathleen Turner.
That's awesome. Amazing.
Yeah, this is great. You and I met through a mutual friend, Jake, and I have seen you play in a lot of games and stuff like that, and I've always said, yeah, that's definitely somebody I would like to get into a game of mine. You bring a really good energy to the games that you're in, as well as just being a good role player. Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely a quality that I seek out, especially for long-term games. I like people who can come to a game and be excited about it.
For sure.
You certainly have that energy. So
thank you.
Yeah. I'm really excited to get the chance to talk to you. So you should be able to find Cari's Twitter information, I believe, in the description of this video. So if you end up loving Cari as much as I do, then you can go say hi to her on Twitter. But yeah, I think we're ready to get started.
Awesome.
Let's do this. Yeah.
Awesome.
As always, if you have questions this evening, please do go ahead and post them in the chat, and I will do my best to kind of throw it up here on the screen, and we will eventually get to it. Before that, I do have a few questions of my own that I would like to. Well, I don't know why my voice is cracking like I'm going through puberty, but
you're excited. You're just excited.
I am. I can't help it.
It's okay.
So, yeah, I have a few questions of my own for Cari, as well as a couple that I've brought preloaded from the audience members out there. But let's start. Oh, this is always one of my favorite questions to get in early. Where and how did you find gaming? How did you get into this weird little hobby?
So a friend of mine who actually works at the high school where I work, she had just gotten hired. And she dropped this stat on me. I didn't think it had been this long, but 5 years ago when she just got hired, we do this big staff breakfast on the first day of school. Like not the first day with kids, but like the first day we're all kind of called back from our various corners of summer vacation. And she was sitting with she teaches English and I teach math, so we just sort of sit at separate tables. But I was walking through with my breakfast and she calls me over and I was like, hey, and I knew a couple people sitting there. And she goes, you're a nerd, right? And I was like, yeah, because I had just gotten done with the Mass Effect experience. So I was I had just, so people kind of knew about that and she knew about that. And so I was like, yeah, I'm a nerd. And she goes, are you interested in playing Pathfinder? And I was like, I kind of know what that is. Is it complicated? And she goes, you teach math, right? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, nah, you'll be fine. And that was that. And I joined her for a game, and that campaign is actually still alive. We're playing on Wednesday next week. So yeah, it's that it has been awesome. And once I started playing that, I I was talking to my gym manager at the time, who was friends with Jake, and then Jake heard that I did that, and lo and behold, I played a game of I think it was, God, I'm trying to remember it was Halloween game, like however
Okay.
many years ago, his annual Halloween game, and I think we played
Sure.
Kids on Bikes. But anyway, and then I was in. So
Well, damn. Like,
yeah.
Jake being like your second game master to play under or whatever, that's
Oh my God.
phenomenal.
I was telling
It's a good
seriously,
draw.
I have been spoiled rotten, and the people I play with in my very first campaign are all just so smart and so creative and like
That's awesome.
such great people to play with. Like I've never, knock on wood, I've never had like a super duper bad experience. Like I've just
Yeah,
been so lucky.
very much so, man.
Mhm.
Now, I've never had like actual abject horror unfold at the table.
Oh no, yeah.
Typically, that's all of the drama bullshit that happens in between sessions, thankfully.
Yeah.
But
I've experienced that. But
but I have definitely had a lot of out of character tension at the table before, where
okay.
it's like, and I'm not a confrontational person. I hate confrontation.
Yeah.
So when that kind of starts happening and I'm not directly involved in it, then I'm kind of like sitting back going, oh no, like,
Are you one of those people that it doesn't even need to be, are you an empath? Are you a
yes,
feeler? Okay,
yeah,
same. Like, and you can
yeah.
just sense that vibe.
Yeah, I start to get embarrassed when other people are yelling and arguing.
Yes. Oh my
I'm like,
God.
oh no, oh no.
I was watching, okay, so I feel like I owe you an apology. I was
No, not at
watching
all.
back in prep for this, just in case you ask me any questions. I was watching back the Firefly game that you so graciously invited me to.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I got a little fucking steamy. Do we swear here? Is this okay?
Fuck no.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, sorry. I got a little pissed during the last session, and I yelled. I raised my voice, and you got squirmy in your window, and I was like, oh no. Like maybe I took it too far.
No, when it happens in a game, I'm all for it. Like,
Sure.
I love it. Absolutely. If it's in character, then I'm totally with it.
Good,
I think
good.
that's great stuff. Yeah. It's when I can tell that it's not something
It's
that
real.
somebody's pretending,
Yeah.
then I'm like, ooh no.
Yeah. No, I get that.
But
I get
yeah,
that.
I have heard some horror stories though of things that have happened in people's games, and very thankful that I haven't witnessed any of those kinds of things in person. Having to deal with like asking a player to leave a group and that kind of shit is very hard for me.
Oh my God.
But it is definitely stuff that I've had to do before, and never something I look
well,
forward
and
to.
sometimes, to ensure that the majority of the people at your table are comfortable and having fun.
Yes.
That's the nature of the beast. Sometimes the person has to go, and that's,
yep.
I think we've all had a couple experiences like that. It's a bummer, but
sure. And especially, if you're the dungeon master, like in my case where we host, so it's at my house. So it's kind of, it doubly falls onto me sometimes to be the one to have the hard conversations.
You're the host.
Yeah. So
for sure.
Not pleasant stuff, but thankfully I have absolutely enjoyed more pleasant times and pleasant exchanges with people that far outweighs the negative.
For sure. Yeah.
That's really cool. So you only started playing, I guess, about 5 years ago, you said, right?
Correct. Yeah. And I had always
which is awesome.
I had always been TTRPG curious, let's say. I had watched like Critical Role, and I was like, oh, I think I even posted on Facebook like a long time ago. I think I want to play D&D, but I think that might be a bridge too far, I think was the quote. Because like I'm super into, oh my God, once you're in, you're in. Yep. And it's oh my God, it's like, it is seriously, I joke with my friend Brooke sometimes that invited me to my first game. I'm like, dude, you're like a drug dealer. Because it's like, hey, first one's free. And then it's like, you're done.
Come on, you're going to love it.
Seriously. And it is. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, it's really popular right now. But legit.
It's got these little pretty rocks.
Yeah. Hey, do you want to? Here. No. They're yours. Keep them. They're free. That's like seriously almost exactly the way it all went down. And
you want to see DMG?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, it's yeah, I'm so happy that I've found this hobby and this community, and it's just so fun.
Yeah, it's unlike anything else. That's the
Yes.
thing that I've really first kind of got my attention. Whenever
Mhm.
I got started,
Oh my
is
god,
that I had
yeah.
never seen anything that did this particular thing. And
Right.
like, I grew up in a neighborhood where we had a bunch of kids that used to play together.
Okay.
And yeah, we played Nintendo and stuff like that, but we spent a lot of time outside, and we
Mhm.
spent a lot of time playing pretend.
Mhm.
So I did a lot of that as a kid.
Mhm.
And my family, my immediate family, is very much kind of we all try to be funny, so we all try to like one up each other, whenever we
Sure.
get together.
Sure.
So that's kind of been my environment that I grew up in. So I got
Uh-huh.
involved in theater in high school and all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff, and then I eventually found role playing games around the same time.
Mhm.
But the way that we typically played was a lot more focused on the rules and that kind of stuff, and it was great. I
Okay.
loved it.
Sure.
Um, but then in college, when I went into college on a drama scholarship, we ended up forming
Mm.
a group in the theater department. So everybody involved
Oh.
was either actors or technicians. Like our
Yes.
technical theater teacher even joined our group, and we would play like on the stage.
Oh
We would
my
set like
god.
sawhorses up, and we put like door blanks on top of it, and we'd sit there and play.
Play.
Um, and I made my character's sword out of wood in shop class, and my best friend made his character's great axe out of wood. And so, like while we were playing, we would be able to get up and say, "This is the kind of particular way I want to swing my
Y-
sword." And then it
Yes.
all started turning in my head, and I was like, "Oh, now I understand what this game is really capable of."
Can be.
You're
Exactly.
Yeah, you're telling a story, and just everybody is in charge of different pieces of it.
Right.
Um, so yeah, once that light bulb was lit, then
Uh-huh.
it was always all the time like I got to play more.
For sure.
Um,
For sure.
yeah,
That's
so
I've gotten a chance to play with a lot of theater people as well, and
mhm,
they kind of give me
yeah,
a hard time because like I'm one of the only ones that was like very sporty. Like I never did drama
mhm,
ever.
right,
And so like I was a 3 sport athlete in high school, but I always
mhm.
like I would do creative writing and stuff, but like I never really had the outlet like this
Huh.
has created. So it's
That's
kind
really
of cool.
interesting though, because you have a lot of stage acting, like
Oh,
not necessarily like credibility, but
sure.
instincts. Like when
Mm.
you're role playing, you have a lot of really good instincts, which
Well,
is
thank you.
very cool to know that it's not trained at all.
Thanks.
Even in practice, that's awesome.
Thank you very much. No, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's just fun. It's just fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good whenever you can find yourself swept away in little
Yeah,
moments that happen in the game.
for
That's
sure.
what kind of tends to elevate it into an art form, if you will.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but um, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the first question that I'm going to hop to, aside from the one that I've already asked, comes from Keel Adam,
Yeah.
and he asks, "What is your biggest source of self consciousness when
Mm,
GMing?
mm,
What about when you're playing?"
mm. So I have never GM'd. Dirty
That's right.
confession. I'm getting ready to. I've got a game coming up on MTD in the fall that it's gonna be my maiden voyage. But we're gonna be playing Call of Cthulhu, so I'm pretty excited about that, and I've been kind of developing
That's
that over the last
amazing.
couple of months, and it's more or less homebrew. So I'm kind of just jumping in with both feet.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but
a
I'm
good way
pretty
to do it,
familiar with
though.
the system, and yeah, and I'm confident enough. I've played enough Cthulhu, and like I've studied, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
So I'm excited. But as far as being like as self consciousness as a player, probably honestly, it's a nice problem to have, but usually it's the people I'm playing with are so skilled and so talented and so creative that I always have a little bit of imposter syndrome. I get
Sure.
I have been so blessed and so lucky to get invited to so many cool games on your channel and on Jake's and on Dwight's and another one I play. It used to be we played as performative in a theater, Dice Tales, and I get invited to these things, and I'm like, I don't. belong here. I feel there's always this little sneaky doubt. So honestly, that's mine is just the self-doubt, being surrounded by such talent.
It is it's a monster to wrestle with. And we actually did a whole episode on the imposter syndrome. It was it was a really good conversation with my friend Kenya.
Oh yeah.
Okay. As far as my answer to Keel's question,
what do you think? What is your DMing self-consciousness? That's what I want to know.
DMing self-consciousness. I guess the biggest one that I have is making sure that I hook my players, that I really get them. Because while I do what I do, at least here on the channel online, and I have to be aware of like doing these kinds of things for an audience and hopefully making it digestible, entertainment, all that kind of stuff, there is still that part of me as a dungeon master that hates spending a lot of time and energy on an idea that I think is going to be really awesome, really cool, and then to have the players not be interested in it. It is a soul crushing experience.
Oh God,
it's one that I don't know that I can ever get over. So my workaround for that is I just grew very adaptive as a game master. So now I feel fairly comfortable being thrown into a situation where the players are going to not really pay attention to my, cool thing that I did, and either finding a way to use it somewhere else or holding on to it for much later and, trying to find a way to work it back in that way and then just try again, double down on making it interesting or whatnot.
Sure.
So yeah, I would have to say that's probably my biggest one. GMing.
Gotcha.
Other than just overall performance anxiety, which is just something that is just something I deal with.
Absolutely.
As a player, trying this is going to sound horrible. Trying to not be funny.
Yeah.
Making sure that it stays in appropriate moments, because I have a lot of levity, and that's I tend to have a lot more levity when I play than when I'm a dungeon master. There's a lot more going on as a dungeon master, so I don't really have time to focus on trying to find that zinger to throw in there. But as a player, I have a lot of extra time, and that's not a good idea for my brain. And so I'm constantly worried about not picking the right moment to make a joke and it ruining somebody else's experience.
For sure. Sure.
And especially the kind of humor that I have. I'm a very sexual humored kind of person. And, I try to be tactful when I can. And at least, make sure that everybody is comfortable with what I'm going to joke about before I do it. So I guess those are probably my biggest ones as a player.
Right. Well, and I think that can kind of do you trust the people at your table? And I think that 100%. That is such an important piece of running a good game, is having people around you, surrounding yourself with the right kind of people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I harp on this channel, on this show over and over again, is the two important things that I think every game master has to have before you really start worrying about working on all the other things. And those two things are comfort and communication skills.
Yes.
Those are the two things you have to master before you're going to be a great game master.
For sure. And again, with the comfort and the communication skills is so huge. If you're uncomfortable with something, like being able to say, hey dude, like whatever, like, having that talk, I think is huge. And some people just aren't capable of that, unfortunately. And
very true.
And so I think there's a certain amount of, ironically enough, in where we're all sitting around playing pretend, I think maturity plays a part.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the hobby, is that I play with some of the most emotionally mature people that I've ever met.
Mhm.
People who are really usually very grounded in the way that they feel about things, where they
Oh,
stand
yeah.
on things, and how to
Mhm.
kind of step outside that to play a character or to play a
Right.
scene that can be really taxing emotionally, and then pull
Yeah.
back from it and be perfectly fine.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so it's always cracked me up that that is one aspect of the hobby, but a lot of the same people that I play with, a lot of those same people are basically 12 to 13-year-old boys every time we sit down to play, and everything devolves down into dick and fart jokes.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah,
having
no.
both of those at the same time is this
Right.
incredible little thing that surrounds this hobby.
Totally, totally unique. That's beautiful.
Uh, um, okay, so let's get on to some of the
Mhm.
talking points.
Mhm.
So when I asked what topic it was that you felt passionate about, you
Yeah.
mentioned two things with zero hesitation, one
Mhm.
of which was confidence building. Now,
Mhm.
because you proclaimed this particular subject with such confidence, I might add, it immediately piqued my interest.
Mhm.
You must have found some fountain of techniques and tricks and secrets towards
Mhm.
that kind of an end. Would you would you please share those with us?
Well, I think yeah, absolutely. I think that I I consider myself, at least now, to be a pretty confident person. When I was, like, in high school, like, early college, I really, really, really wasn't. I was super duper shy. I got picked on a little bit, when I was younger, so, that sorta made me just kind of focus on me and just kinda recede a little bit. But I remember kind of deciding when I went away to school, I was like, "I'm not gonna be shy anymore." And I remember thinking, like, I can just choose not to be shy anymore. And I was like, I'm gonna pretend. I'm gonna do what I think a confident person would do in this situation. I'm just gonna do that thing. And it was a lot of leaps of faith, but I remember thinking like like I faked it essentially long enough that
Right.
it became me. It's not faking it anymore. And I think that is kind of, to an extent, what D&D is and what TTRPGs are. It's pretending to be something. And you find I've had a lot of people I've played with, they pretend to be this thing and then they start working out or they start, it's like or whatever. And it's like you can be whatever you want to be. And that's sort of just the pretending is a big element of that. At least it has been for me. And um, I think that other people uh, can kind of find that too. I've seen that a lot in teenage kids who play. They are very shy often, but then gain confidence through pretend, and they can just sort of like feel what that feels like, and oftentimes they're hooked. I
Yeah,
think.
I've often said that one of the things that makes role playing games such a great, um, aside from it being a great pastime and entertainment, such a great tool,
Mhm.
is
Yes.
that it gives you the safe place to explore things that are scary to explore in real life.
Yes.
It gives you the ability to practice feeling emotions that you might not have gone through before.
Mm,
A lot of early, especially kids playing whenever they're younger, not many of them have gone through the loss of a loved one.
mm,
And sometimes those kinds of things, playing through that in the game with a group of mature,
mhm,
healthily, emotionally mature and healthy people,
mhm.
that can that can give you a lot of experience in how to approach those kinds of things when they happen in your real life.
Right. Right.
How to resolve conflict in discussion as opposed
Mhm.
to resolving in fighting. All of these
Right.
kinds of things are things that you can very easily practice in a safe space
Mhm.
where once it's done, everybody walks away and there's no real harm that's been done, even if you mess things up.
Mhm.
Um, gives you a little bit of an understanding of how it might actually go in real life as a simulation almost.
Absolutely. And that's like I liked that you used the phrase, it can be used as a tool. I had read an article, and I'll have to find it for you, but it was how there was this group, it was at an alternative school, for kids and young adults on the autism spectrum. And they played, as a means to talk about how it appropriately express emotions, and to settle conflict, like you said. And I just thought that was so cool. And like,
Yeah.
that's at its core, that's what it is. It's socialism practice, or socialization practice.
Depends on the group, but you're not wrong.
Socialism practice is fun too, which is, hey, we should just try it. I'm just saying, we should
Yeah,
just try
right.
it.
At
See
this
how it
point,
goes.
why not?
See how it goes. So, but yeah, and you can get a lot out of the pretending process. And for me, I remember when I first sat down to play, I kind of reverted back to when I was in my freshman year of high school. I'm like, okay, I just gonna do what a confident person would do. And it ended up being that much more of a rewarding experience.
Yeah, it's always very much reminiscent for me of being in theater, where you're standing in the wings waiting to go on stage, and you're hoping that you're going to hear your cue, and like you're going through everything that could possibly go wrong, where you
Yeah.
might mess up, why you should not be the one doing this.
Yeah.
And then you hear your cue and you step on stage, and within the first 10 seconds everything's changed. You're in
Yeah.
it. You're
Yeah.
in the stream at that point, and then you either
Yes.
got to swim or you got to get out of the way. But
Mhm.
most of the time, all of that second guessing fades to the back. It gets quiet.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing that I kind of draw a similarity between is when we would go rappelling in the Scouts. At a certain point, you're hooked in the harness, you've got your rope, and you have your feet on the edge of the cliff. At some point, you
Mhm.
have to make the conscious decision to sit down on nothing, just in the open air,
Yeah.
before you can then start to rappel.
Yep.
That decision, that making yourself do that, is always, for me, was always the hardest point.
Doing
It's
it yourself. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Oh.
it's that threshold of the point of no return.
Mhm.
Of if I take one more step, if I do this other thing, then I can't back out. And it's
Mhm.
very scary. Your brain starts to play all kinds of weird games with you. But I've found, for me at least, all I have to do is just keep telling my brain, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up, shut the
Yes.
fuck up, and just take
Yes,
that
yes,
next step.
yes.
And then it's over, and I'm past it, and I can focus on what I need to do.
Being able to have another mode, being able to find a
Yes.
different gear. That's exactly what it is. It's you can have kind of that duality, like, and the more often you take those plunges, the easier it becomes. And that's a freaking life skill. One thing that we're seeing so often with as I teach high school, and so we're seeing so often with teenagers, is that they are cripplingly afraid of taking risks. And it's like, what are you going to do when you have to drive? What are you going to do when you have to choose a college or a vocational school, or go? There are big decisions that you've got to be a
Yeah.
little bit comfortable with kind of taking the plunge. And I think that on a much smaller scale, D&D and this pretend that we do is practice. It's practice for that. And it's important. It's important.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's, there's a lot of, D&D that's run as therapy.
Yeah.
A lot of times for the people on the spectrum and otherwise,
Mhm.
practicing social skills, or
Mhm.
understanding, again, conflict resolution in a healthy way,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. So it's amazing to me that the game has come so far.
Oh my god.
Now, I didn't play during the Satanic Panic, but I started in '94,
Oh yeah.
and I was 14, so I was pretty young, and I still remember the the backlash that came after the Satanic Panic, where nerd culture was still super like, nobody wants to be called a nerd. I was definitely that kid growing up, and so I did get a lot of kickback from that,
of course,
where D&D was something that I didn't just walk around telling everybody that I played.
Right? It's like Fight Club.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't tell people.
Find somebody. Yeah, you find somebody who is willing to say it out loud, and you're like, you play too?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And you
it's
see
like
each other in the hallway, and you're just like,
just a little head nod. Yeah, exactly. I was lucky enough that we learned to play in the scout troop, so we had people that were supportive of it. But it's really neat to see the fact that the game has gone from that to this kind of feature in the cultural zeitgeist now.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's a mantelpiece. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. TV shows are talking about it. And
Well, no, it's okay. Wouldn't be a Jeremy stream if there weren't dogs.
Exactly.
But no, it's so acceptable. Like, it's something that like so many of my students play, and like it's not something you would shame on me for preconceived notions. I talked about this a little bit on on old Gary's podcast as well, but there was this kid who had just moved to our city where I teach, and I have some D&D stuff up in my room. He said, "You play D&D?" And I said, "I do." And he goes, "Okay, I'll bring you in something tomorrow. I want you to look at." And he has these old manuals from like first edition.
Sure. Okay.
And he's this big kid and athletic and like good looking, and it's just it just didn't compute. Like, this isn't the kind of kid you would think would be into it. But he is, and he plays with other kids, like, and they all love it. And they're just sort of, that is one thing I will say about teenagers these days. They are sort of unabashedly into what they're into. And they like, a lot of them play D&D and they're like, screw you if you don't like it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's nice. It's refreshing.
Truth be told, like, to me, that's the final definition that I settled on for what nerd is somebody who is unabashed about what they're into.
Yes.
You have people who are sports nerds. You have people who are, RPG nerds. You have people who are video game nerds. You have people who are chess nerds, like, and everything in between, Twilight nerds. So, I mean, it's just really about loving what you love and not being embarrassed by that anymore.
100%. I used to do this, a little bit off topic, so I'll make it quick, but I used to do this science show for kids at the local libraries in the summertime, and I got paid for it. I got hired. It was a thing, but I would do like science demonstrations for kids. That's amazing. I billed myself as Cari, the world's coolest nerd, and I had a dad come up to me with his little son after the show and say, yeah, you did a good job, but I don't think you should call yourself a nerd. And I was like, okay, like, why? And he was like, oh, it's a negative thing to be called a nerd. I said, I disagree. And it was right. I will never forget this. I said, I think it's unfortunate that we use the word nerd as a pejorative. So I'm trying to kind of take it back. And I said, and it's kind of my business what I call myself. And I asked his little kid who was standing right there, I said, what do you think a nerd is? And he goes, I think it's a person who's smart and cool. And I'm like, goodbye. Like, it was one of those moments that sounds too good to be true, but it happened and it was legit, and it's like, so screw off. But yeah,
that's amazing.
It can be any kind of nerd. And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it makes me very happy because my son had no chance. My wife and I are both nerds, so he didn't
Doomed
stand
from the start.
Absolutely. So the kid has grown up, talking about Dungeons and Dragons and Halo and Skylanders and Minecraft and everything under the sun. And he's read more trivia books about history than anybody had ever known in my entire life. But he loves that kind of stuff, and it's amazing as a parent to watch my son be able to explore whatever it is that he's got in his head,
Mm-hmm.
without having to worry about, what people are going to think about him and all that kind of stuff. The kind of shit
That's
that I
so
wrestled
cool.
with as a kid.
Sure.
So yeah,
That's
it does me good
progress.
that the world has grown, at least in that regard.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Awesome. We have a question from Jay Neophet. He asks, have you LARPed before?
Oh God. No. I will be honest. I work out. Like I have this T-shirt that says "working out so I can do some of the things my D&D character can." And so like I
Hell yeah.
frequently like use that as like motivation.
Nice.
But no, I have never LARPed. Again, though, it's one of those things I'm like right now as I sit here, I'm like, no, I probably never will. Check in with me 2 years from now. You never know.
It is another bridge too far. I will
Another bridge
definitely
too
say.
far.
Yeah.
But it always
But
looks fun. Like there, I
yeah.
know if I wanted to, I know who I should talk to. So there's a
Mhm.
connect.
Yeah, I
What
had a
about you?
friend that did it for a long while, and I got involved in it for, God, I don't know, maybe 6 months to a year or so.
Okay.
Um, they met at a local park every week, and they ditched, which is like where you line up in two lines and like skirmish with each other with the foam
Okay.
weapons and stuff. And that was really fun. It was a really good time. I've always, again, been a D&D and a fantasy person, so getting to pretend to sword fight people was amazing.
Sure.
And I started to kind of get into it. I started making my own weapons, and started going out there every week. And my wife does costuming, so we make costumes and stuff. We've been going to Renaissance Festival for years
Sure.
and years.
Sure.
And so it was really fun. And there's definitely a collection of characters that are involved.
Oh yeah.
And it runs the gamut from everybody who takes it way too serious all the way to, the guy who shows up and he has kittens all over his shield.
Okay.
So, I mean, it just everything in between. But
Awesome.
most of them were pretty good people. There was a lot of drama, but it was a lot of fun.
Just
And
like
then
any other club or thing.
exactly. Exactly. We went to a single event. It was a pirate themed event, and it was
Ooh.
amazing. There was, at one point, we had a battle that had like close to 200 people on the
Oh my
field at one
God.
time. Yeah. And like they said, go, and there were like fireballs like flying through the sky, and like one of them was a giant kickball that was like wrapped in cloth,
Oh
so it
my
had like these like
God.
flames that like like went behind it. It was
What?
incredible. And then you
That
could hear
sounds so
everybody
cool.
running at once, so like the ground is actually shaking, and it was intense. But
Dude.
there was a lot of other things that happened that weekend that convinced me, you know what, this just isn't my thing.
Maybe this is not quite the scene I
Yeah,
expected it to be. I could see
yeah,
that. I could see
for
that.
sure.
It's nice to play and then
Yeah,
leave.
exactly.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
But it was definitely an interesting experience.
Oh,
That's for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's
Lots
what
of
I think
cool little
back on fondly.
takeaways
Yeah, for sure.
for sure.
Okay, we have another question. This one is from Nathan. He asks, how do you build the confidence to play or run a game in person for strangers?
Mm. Yeah. Again, I can't speak to running one, but I mean, playing I guess I haven't played in person with strangers that much. I've played digitally with a lot of strangers. And I guess I don't know if that's in the spirit of the question, just playing with strangers. It's again for me it's hard. Like because I get Jake will invite me or Gary once invited me to play and he's like, "Yeah, we got some great people playing." And he like listed off a bunch of them and the last one he listed was freaking Ed Greenwood. And I'm like, "Okay, Gary, did this go to the right person?" And I'm like I was just and so again, it's the just kind of taking the plunge and just I trust Gary and I trust Jake and I trust you you wouldn't have invited me if I didn't belong. That's kind of where I come from, where I come at it from. So I'm like, I just go in and And the other thing is, by now, you guys are picking me based on stuff you've seen me do. So I'm like, so I must just be doing something right. So I'll just stick with the with what I've been doing.
Yeah,
And
it
for
works.
me, it's kind of, there's a little bit of confidence built in, I guess. But if I didn't have that, I would just also go in and do what I do. That's one of the perks of being in your mid 30s. You kind of just do what you're going to do. And if people like it, awesome. And if they don't, F you. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
I am very much that same. I was very lucky in my teenage years because of a lot of the teasing and stuff that I got growing up as a younger
Mm,
kid.
mm-hmm.
Right around the age that I was in high school, so right around the age of 14, I switched from doing band into theater. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife,
Mm.
and we started going together. And I changed schools from one school district to another.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so it was a very transformative time in my life.
Yeah.
And I, for whatever reason, that particular mixture, cocktail, or whatever of what was going on, I eventually came to the conclusion that I just didn't give a shit anymore what
Mm-hmm.
anybody else thought about me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I don't want to come across as a bad person.
Of
That's a
course not.
personal choice.
Right, right.
But I don't care if people don't get the way that I dress or
Mm-hmm.
understand the things that I'm into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a few friends that are really close. They're the people that I'm going to spend my time on. You know, my family, who I get along with and I love very dearly,
Mm-hmm.
they're who I'm going to spend my time and effort and energy on.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of these people, I'm just not going to worry about it anymore.
Right.
Um,
Jeremy, I gotta follow up this question with another
please. Okay.
question. So you said you moved to another
Mhm.
school when you were going into high school. Did you find that that was also, I mentioned earlier, when I went off to college, I was like, I'm going to be a different person now,
Mm.
essentially. Is that sort of the same vibe you felt, or were you saying essentially, I'm going to be what I have been all along, and if you don't like it, F off? What was the vibe?
So definitely a mixture of both. So it wasn't as clean of a break as like my year going into high school. I had one
Okay.
year, I think, of junior high
Oh,
left whenever we
okay.
transitioned before
Mhm.
we went to high school. But um, yeah, when I found out that like this new school district that I moved into didn't have a hair requirement, a length requirement for guys. You could wear an earring as a guy, where in my old school district you couldn't do those things.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, cool. Like I'd wanted to get my ear pierced for like 2 years at that point, and my mom
Okay.
finally let me do it. It was it was in the '90s, you know what the hell. Um, and I started growing my hair out, and
Mhm.
I'd always wanted to grow my hair long, and that was way before many guys were doing that.
Did it?
Um,
Okay.
and so yeah, I kind of reinvented myself, I guess, a little bit.
Hmm.
I was like, I'm just gonna do my thing and um, hope
Just
that
gonna
this is an
explore.
easier experience.
Yeah,
And it was,
absolutely. Right.
largely.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's, I think, the thing that's kind of insurmountable to a lot of people is if you wanna choose to be different, like, if you wanna make a hard right turn, like, you can. Like, and oftentimes it is just choices, not always, but a lot of times it kinda can be. So that's
Yeah,
interesting.
very much so.
Have you ever,
Sometimes.
run a game for strangers, Jeremy? Have you ever
Yes.
been, like, at a convention?
I've never run a game at
Or
a convention,
okay,
but I definitely have run for, like people that I've never met before who were friends of friends,
okay.
or especially online. Online, I've
Mm,
run a lot more games
sure,
for strangers, people that I've never met or interacted with.
sure.
Um, my first hard fast rule is that I don't put people that I've never exchanged with, like met and talked to,
Mm,
at least digitally, in campaigns.
mm,
Um, if I haven't seen you play before, I'm just not going to put you in a campaign, a long term game.
sure.
That's just not something I'm comfortable doing.
Mhm.
I want to make sure that we're going to be kind of on the same wavelength and that we can get along and that I can understand where you might kind of fit into like a table dynamic.
Sure.
so that I can help, consider that whenever I'm considering my other players to put you into a group with. All that kind of stuff is things that I like to consider. And that is because I've had experiences running games for strangers before that didn't go well.
Okay.
Not horrifying, again, but just
Mhm.
where it was very obvious that the person who was sitting there wanted something entirely different than what I was prepared to do.
Okay.
Um,
Got it.
our expectations didn't line up.
Sure.
And
Sure.
as far as confidence in a situation like that, I mean, I don't know.
Is it just innate at this point? Like, you know what you're freaking doing? Like, you're an
Well, I
old
mean,
pro?
like I still get nervous every game, every single
Sure.
game that I'm running or playing in. I get nervous as hell beforehand. I have a whole like routine that I have to go through to like get myself in the right headspace and all that kind of stuff. But for me, being nervous it's a boon to me at this point.
Mm,
Like now I take my nerves and I use that to try to get my energy up so that way I can
mm,
hopefully perform well.
sure.
I've figured out how to redirect that toxicity that's going on
Yeah.
into a more positive direction.
Use it.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess confidence for strangers, it's not generally a problem because I know I'm just going to be able to use it in the end.
Sure. Sure.
So,
Well, and being nervous, I always tell my athletes, I coach, and I just said, it's good that you're nervous. Nervous means you give a shit. You know what I mean? If you weren't a little bit
absolutely.
nervous, then that's just kind of, you're being flippant then.
Yeah.
Being a little nervous means you want to your people at your table to have fun, and you
hmm
want to create a good product for them, and that's important. It means you care.
Yeah, I agree. I very much agree.
Mhm.
Yeah, Nathan added he's going to be running a game at a convention soon, and he's very afraid, and,
Ooh,
that's normal. Like I think it's
sure.
okay to be that way. Um, yeah, how to overcome it? Again, it's what it takes to kind of push your ass past the precipice.
Yes.
Whatever it is that works for you.
Mhm.
Take a shot if
I was just
if
gonna
that's what
say,
works
take
for
a
you.
shot. Carry a little
Smoke a bowl,
traveler or
whatever
something with you.
whatever it is that you got to do that's also legal in your state.
Mhm.
That gets you relaxed, and then do it again. Like comfort
Mhm.
is a huge asset as a game master.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not talking about showing up in your PJs with your bunny slippers on.
Right.
I mean, if it's that kind of party, whatever. But um, it's about your comfortability in this chair, in the dungeon master seat.
Mhm.
Um, knowing what your weaknesses and your strengths are and planning accordingly for those things. I
Mhm.
think that it will alleviate most of your concerns,
Mhm.
at least any of the valid ones, because
Mhm.
then you're ready. And all you
Right.
have to do is just worry about the nerves.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you're running at a convention and people are showing up to play at your table, there is a certain amount of confidence then that the people around you have in you. And so it's like you have people in your corner. People are there. People aren't there to rip you apart. They're there to have fun, and they're there to enjoy
Yeah,
a game you put out. And
exactly.
so focus on that. Just have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. The fun should be paramount always.
Agreed.
Um, and you'll have people who don't agree with you, who are
Mhm.
gonna get smarmy whenever you talk about, hey, I think we're going to handle that this way this time. People that
Sure.
get real bent out of shape over the rules, that kind of
That's
stuff. But
their hang up.
yeah, exactly. But if you focus on people just having a good time and you having a good time as well,
Yeah.
then it's a recipe for success, truthfully.
Mhm.
Okay, we have another question from Jay, and he says to both of us, is there someone you would like to play a TTRPG game with or play at your table? Do you have a bucket list of people?
Oh man. I mean, like, I feel like this is very like just an overlapping Venn diagram of famous people I'd like to meet. But as far as people in this scene,
Right.
um, for me, it's other voice artists. So it's a lot of like the
Mhm.
critical role people. I have had a lady crush on Laura Bailey forever. Just from a
Not a
voice acting
lady, but also
standpoint.
crushed.
Yeah, fair, fair. Just she was one of the first like voice artists when I started like getting into video gaming that I would like recognize her voice specifically in other things. And so obviously that'd be cool to meet her. But God, yeah, just Ashley Johnson, freaking phenomenal. So, I mean, I would like to sit down and play with them, of course, but I would also just like to meet them and talk to them and pick their brains and about voice stuff specifically. They're both so talented.
Yeah, I have a somewhat similar answer, I guess, and most of mine would be actors that I admire.
Sure.
Obviously, it would have been on my bucket list is Robin Williams. He played in the fact
Did
that
he?
he
I
played
didn't
in
know
Rand
that.
Games with Billy Crystal, no less.
No shit.
Yes.
How
the two
did
of
you
them played
find this out?
together. I've been obsessed with people like celebrities who play Dungeons and Dragons long before it became like a common thing in Hollywood now. So there's been lists that I've come across on the internet and things like that of people. I think they also played Warhammer, if I'm not mistaken. I think
That
Robin
doesn't
Williams
surprise
had
me.
a massive army, from my understanding. But
Wow.
yeah, like I don't know that I would be able to contribute much to a game that was happening at a table where Robin Williams was present, but just to be in his presence and watch him do what he did,
just to bask,
firsthand would have been incredible. Even just the attempt to try to keep up would be challenging and fun,
right?
I think.
Right.
And aside from that, I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of people where I just like, like super fanboy over, but there's a lot of people who I admire as performers and things like that I would get really giddy and excited about being in a game with, for sure.
Oh, yeah. You know who else plays? And I have another big crush, Stephen Colbert. I have always loved him. I have always loved him so much. I had his book. I had his book way back in like the Colbert Report days. I Am America and So Can You.
Yes.
I've just, oh God, yeah, I would love to play with him. He's awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. People who are very intelligent and also very funny, genuinely so. I love that particular blend in a human being. And then if they're into really nerdy things on top of that, then it's very much like a yes. You know, like I can sit down and talk to you.
Is it hot in here? Right, exactly. Well, and I don't like, obviously I don't know. You never know. But I just feel like they're pretty good people. Like I've seen Stephen Colbert specifically.
I do think Colbert's a good dude.
I've seen him give a bunch of interviews like about his childhood and like about like just he seems like a good dude to me. I don't know why I think that, but I feel it.
I think, okay, I know one of my answers to this question, and it would be it would have to not be a very emotionally serious game. It would have to be a silly, goofy, like drinking and smoking kind of night. It would be Weird Al.
Oh my God.
It would be incredible to
if
roll
he
dice
doesn't play, I will miss
really
my guess. Yeah, I bet you he's dabbled.
Yeah, he may not like play all the time, but I imagine he's at least played before.
He has rolled a die that's not 6-sided.
He stepped foot on that bridge too far.
Yes. He's for sure. He's tasted it. Yeah.
RPG curious, as you said earlier.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hey, it was college. No.
Listen, I was just finding myself. I don't know what you want from me.
It was only advanced.
It was one time. God. It was a one shot.
Do THAC0, that's all. So, all right. Another question that I have for you is, and we've kind of talked on this, but confidence is something that can be difficult to build within yourself, and arguably is even harder to maintain over a long period of time. This is even more true whenever you're getting into something new, and such as tabletop role-playing games, as we've kind of talked about. But why do you think that is? Why is it so difficult for us as humans to just go for it and not worry so much?
Because I think there's something innate in our brains that trends toward safety. Physical, psychological, emotional safety. And I think that what is safest is what is best known. And so diving into something new and unknown it's a scary thing, and it kind of goes against what your brain is telling you is good, which is safety. So I think that's at its really, really bare bones core. I think that's what it is. Even if it's not like a life-threatening thing, if it's sitting down at a table with strangers, even if it's digitally, it's not something you know. So it's unsafe, and there's always going to be that little part of your brain that's like, I don't think so. I don't think so. But like you said, it's telling your brain to shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
I think that's a skill. And it's a skill that you get better at over time. It's like any other skill. You practice it and you get better at it.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that, because I've always kind of maintained the idea that all phobia, all fear really kind of leads down to the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who are afraid of the dark are not actually afraid of the dark. They're afraid of what they can't see, what they don't know is there.
Yep.
And that is a deeply innate sensation that we have, an instinct that we have as our animal brains, fight with, the cognitive
Logical
side
brains.
of our brain.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We build the unknown up. And we can even look at the negative of a known situation and at least find comfort there because we understand it.
Right.
Even if it's a bad outcome, we know, well, at least I know how that turns out.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I know what could happen. There was a study done, I read about it in the New York Times, that kids who we're essentially making our kids emotionally stunted by making playground equipment safer. And stay with me on this. Because in jungle gym days, if a kid fell off a jungle gym, the fear as adults, if we see that a kid falls off a jungle gym, we're thinking, oh, that kid's going to be afraid of heights, or that kid's going to be afraid of whatever. But what was actually found was that kid is less afraid of heights because they know what can happen. Like, you can fall.
Yeah.
And so a kid who's never experienced that doesn't know. And that then they are that much more afraid to take risks. And it's like you said, it's those two primal side and cognitive side of your brain fighting. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, psychology has always been something that's very fascinating to me.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the other reasons why I really like being a dungeon master, is because I get to step into not one character per game. I get to step into the mindset of,
many,
dozens of them,
and
cool. try to depict them in a way that feels real, which is a really fun experiment. But you're talking about how experience is what takes a lot of the guesswork and a lot of the fear out of that. There was something I was reading the other day that was talking about, I think it was MMA fighters it was talking about. And it said one of the first things that they recommend everybody does is get punched in the face.
Yes.
Said, because you don't know what it's going to feel like. You don't know what you're going to do until you get punched in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah, absolutely. It's just doing the thing, even if it has a bad outcome. That's kind of it's fascinating. I read about something they call it the high place phenomenon, and that's like a microscope on what we're talking about with like the primal fear versus the logical. When you're up really high somewhere, and I can attest to this. I did the stratosphere jump in Vegas, where you jump off. It's like a controlled free fall.
Sure.
Basically, when you're standing on an edge that's super high up, the logical side of your brain is saying, you're fine, you're safe, nothing's going to happen. Like, don't jump, but you're okay. The primal side of your brain is saying, get away from the edge. What are you doing? And to the point where they're so in stark contrast that it feels like you're being pushed. And you're kind of like leaning almost. And it's true. It happens. And it's so otherworldly. And I didn't know there was a name for it, but I saw a video done on this. And yeah, psychologically, it's called the high place phenomenon. And it's interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It is. It's so weird.
I've been to some high places before, but not those kinds of heights. You know,
Sure.
again, I've done rappelling and things like that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but not to the point where I was like on a precipice looking down and like people were tiny or anything like that.
Sure, sure, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man, the human brain is such a weird place.
Oh, yeah. Well, and again, yeah,
Speaking,
taking it back
go
to
ahead.
D&D, getting to play with those plunges
Yeah,
is I think vitally important.
absolutely. I agree. And you know, again, kind of to take what we were just discussing and kind of tying it back to RPGs. And
Mhm.
sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And running a game is the best way to learn how to run a game. You know,
Mhm.
playing is the best way to learn how to play.
Mhm.
But I would also argue that the key things to do is, as a player, run a game at least once,
Mm.
and as a game master, make sure that you get to play every once in a while,
Sure.
because nothing will teach you about how to be a better player than running a game, because you
Mm.
will very quickly find behaviors that you absolutely abhor, and you will make sure to never do them ever again as a player,
Sure.
and vice versa.
Sure.
So, moving right along, we've
Mhm.
got another talking point. So this topic does kind of butt up against a previous episode, and I mentioned this a little bit before, where
Mhm.
we specifically talked about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, for those who aren't aware of what the term references, it's kind of that nagging feeling of not really belonging in any given arena, and dismissing any of your past successes as nothing more than luck. Um, how how do you wrestle with such demons in order to maintain a healthier level of confidence? Like how do you push back?
Mm. Mhm. I think you actually touched on it in our last topic, which is kinda just doing it. When I'm feeling those things, at least for me, and again, this is a personal journey, everybody's is different. But when I'm feeling those feelings, I'm getting better at it. I still feel it, but I'm getting better at shutting it down because it's no, like you do belong. Like affirmations kind of at least in my own head, like I- I've done enough in my life now that I feel like my resume is up to snuff more or less with others. And if it's not, I treat it as more of an opportunity than a challenge to my psyche. You know, if I'm playing with somebody who I think is very talented, I'm taking notes. You know, it doesn't need to I'm a very, very competitive person, but that doesn't need to be a competition. You know, it can be a cooperative, experience, and it can be a learning experience. And I think no matter what, you're gonna come out of it as with a positive. And so I think that's important too.
Yeah, I would have to agree 100%. I think often, um, you know, the biscuit is worth it. You know,
Mm,
risk it for the biscuit, because
yep.
oftentimes it is worth it.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, at the very least, the feelings that you were feeling leading up to that situation, getting to that precipice, will be something that you don't really remember.
Right.
Um,
Right.
or if you do, it will be minuscule
Mhm.
compared to that thing that you were looking forward to enough to go through with it.
Right.
Um, I mean, when I think back on all of the things that are like my cherished moments from gaming, at the
Mm,
very least, the things that I remember 10, 20 years on are the really great moments where we didn't know if it was going to work out, but we went for it and it
right.
did. Or we
Right.
went for it and it didn't, but the way it failed was spectacularly.
Right. And a learning experience.
Yeah,
And that's,
exactly right.
when I was when I was in college and I was having kind of this transformative time in my life, there was a talent show, and I was kind of Icarus at this point, I'll be honest, but I entered and I was gonna do stand up. And I'm like,
Oh,
"Yeah,
wow.
I can
Nice.
do it." And I've never did it before, and I never, but I was just like, "Yeah, I think I could be funny." And I remember I told my mother, who is the most loving, supportive, delightful woman you will ever meet in your life. But she said to me, she said, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, why not? And she goes, what if you're not funny?
Oh, no.
I said, I was like, well, then I guess I won't do it twice. And so,
There you go.
and that was kind of the attitude I took in with it. Like, what if I'm not funny? Who gives a shit? Like,
It's incredible.
I'll try it, and if I'm not funny, and then I won. And so I was like, I won
Oh,
the
holy shit.
challenge show. So I was like, hey, mom, I was funny. So, but it's like, but again, I was kind of at that stage where I was just like, who gives a shit? It's an experience, you know? It's like, I try to treat life kind of like as a collection of experiences. You know, I try this, you know, there's so many cool opportunities in life. And it's just like you can make a collection, make the coolest, most colorful, vibrant collection you can, do all the shit. And I think it makes for a rich experience.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was a lot more kind of active and out and doing things whenever I was younger.
Yeah.
Thankfully, because of the Scouts, I got to do
So
do a lot
cool.
of really cool things and go to a lot of places that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Sure.
And now I'm a much more sedentary person, unfortunately. But I spend a lot of time gaming online.
Sure.
I get a lot of time where I get to have really awesome conversations like this with people from all over the world, and game together with people from all over the world. And
Mm-hmm.
those are very special experiences to me.
Sure.
And one of the reasons why I think that our society is in the situation that it is, if everybody will forgive me the rant for just a moment, is because people don't understand that there is so much incredible things. There are so many incredible things about life
Mm-hmm.
that are outside of your normal experience,
Yes.
that are things that you don't know exist just around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
You might have ideas of what is over there, but you don't know. There's a quote by Mark Twain that is, I think, one of my favorite quotes, and I cannot remember it verbatim, but it essentially says that that traveling is one of the best things for curing prejudice. That it's if you travel the world and you see other people and you
Mm-hmm.
experience other things, it erodes your ability to be bigoted.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because they're no longer different than you over there.
Right.
That thing that you didn't understand, you now do understand a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more.
Mm-hmm.
And when you experience those things and it iterates itself, eventually you come to the realization, we're really not so
We're
fucking different from each other.
exactly. You start to focus less on what makes them different
Yeah.
and more on what makes them the same.
Yeah,
And whoever
100%.
the them is. That's, I truly bear no grudge or, against kids who go to community college for a couple of years, or I think that that's awesome and to save money and everything. I do think that there can be value, at least for a little while, in going off to school. I think that's one way to kind of get
Yes.
out. And obviously it's not accessible for everybody, but for the ones that it is, I for the ones who can do it financially and can manage it, I worry a little bit when they just kind of want to stay. And it's, and not that they can't find something awesome and do something awesome. They often do. But I just want people to go experience things, go get out for a little while and come back if you
Yeah.
want to. But I think there's just so much value in, like you said, travel and go live somewhere else and stand on your own 2 feet a little bit. And yeah.
And again, even if you can't afford to travel, we talked about travel a little bit
Yeah.
before the show went live.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate to have the experience that I had. And it's not something that is easy to do, especially now financially. There's a lot that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
But I think even if you can't afford to physically go there, read about the people that live there.
Yes.
Watch subtitled videos where they're talking about life, Educate yourself instead of just assuming that what you think you know is true. Go find out.
Absolutely.
Soften your heart a little bit. Anyways.
I feel very fortunate because like we were talking about before the show, I don't get a ton of opportunities to travel. I was telling Jeremy I'm going to France this summer. I'm super excited. I've never been out of the country, literally not even to Canada. So
that's incredible.
I'm so looking forward to it. But on the other hand, I'm not rich enough to travel, but I teach, so I get foreign exchange students every year. And I know they get sick of me, but I'm always asking them questions about school, where they go, it back home, and what their plans are. And a lot of them say they want to attend university here. And I'm like, why is that? And like, they give these beautiful, insightful answers. I mean, generally speaking, to be a foreign exchange student, they're pretty mature kids and emotionally mature, and they can give these beautiful, insightful answers. And it's just, even that is an enriching experience. And I think, though, Jeremy, you mentioned reading up on these cultures, and it does take effort. And I think some people are not willing to make the effort even to broaden their horizon. And I think that's just sad.
That's true.
It's so sad.
Yes, I agree. I think it is something that is much needed. Maybe now more than ever. But stepping down off of that soapbox.
And now that we've solved all the world's problems, thank you very much.
That's why you've all come to my little channel here, this corner of YouTube, solving the world's problems, one D&D guest at a time. All right. On to the next one, Cari. The next problem of the world.
Okay. Peace in the Middle East. Let's go.
Let's do it. To that end, Keel Adam asks, are you able to draw confidence from your characters that you're playing, including NPCs?
Yes, big time. It's lame and it's dorky, but like, when I'm playing, I'm hopelessly entrenched in rogues and fighters. I tell people this: rogues, fighters, and barbarians are my freaking thing, because I need to, in keeping with the confidence theme, sometimes I kind of need to like talk myself into it a little bit. You know what I mean? And that's sort of on Monday nights I play on Mini Terrain Domain. I play a barbarian, and that's kind of like her thing. Like, she sort of like boasts, and that's me. And I didn't realize it until I really started playing, but that's kind of me. And I definitely think that throughout that journey of like trying to be confident and pretend to be confident, it's making me more confident. And that's, I think, again, treating it like a tool. I think that's exactly what happens, is you draw from your characters, for sure.
Well, and again, that to me is one of the unique things about a role-playing game, is that when you step into the pseudo shoes of this character and adopt these challenges that they go through, these experiences that they live through, you are in some ways living through those things yourself. You are experiencing them, again, a simulation of them at the very least, first person. And even though your character is technically a different entity other than you as a player, anyone who says that they're entirely divorced from their character is lying to you.
You can't
be. Impossible. Unless you suffer from genuine like schizophrenia or something, where you have multiple personality disorder, then, there isn't that schism that's that clean.
Or unless you really, really, truly, truly don't give a shit. Which fair. If that's the way you want to play, like, that's fine. Like, if you're really just in it just for the yucks, and again, if that's your jam, cool. But I think that if you want to have any true, like, honest experience, you definitely are connected, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, and so when you are doing that, there's going to be some small part of you that is emotionally invested in what's happening to this entity, this person. That's why we
Absolutely.
don't want to see our characters die.
Right.
Is because there is a
Right.
little part of us that goes no.
Oh god.
Um,
Oh yeah,
but
exactly.
uh, but it is a good way to, again, just to practice those things,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
find someone who is more confident than you,
Mhm.
knowing that if I were to be standing toe to toe with a lizard that could fly and breathe fire that was 40 feet long, I would probably shit myself and quake in the corner.
Right.
um you know but
Legit.
right, so my character obviously isn't going to take that option.
Yeah.
um
Right.
Yeah, so the name Erasmus, I talk about this every once in a while when it comes up. It comes from the first character that I really kind of played as
Mhm.
a fully realized, person. Had
Mhm.
a backstory, had all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And he very much kind of became the quantification of what I thought a hero should be.
Oh, wow.
So he did the right thing whenever the
Yeah.
decisions came around, and a decision needed to be made. He would do what he thought was the right thing,
Mm.
no matter what, even if it
Mhm.
cost him everything, if it
Mm.
cost him his own life, if it cost him his standing within the community. He didn't care. He was going to do
Mm.
what he felt was right,
Wow.
and he was going to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. So that was the way that I played the character, and
Mhm.
very much that was what I wanted to be more of in my day-to-day life.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and so when we stopped playing that game, and I was looking for like an online alias for emails and that kind of stuff, I
Mhm.
that was a natural choice for me. He had struck a
Erasmus.
chord with me,
Hmm.
Erasmus. And so when I started the channel, everything. I have a picture that my friend drew on
Mhm.
the wall. And this was the one that I had made the wooden sword for and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So still to this day,
Mhm.
there's almost a little bit of the WWED in my head. What would
Uh-huh.
Erasmus do? That comes up every once in a while, where I myself might not know what the best course of action is,
Yeah.
and there's a moment where, like, well, what would Erasmus do in this situation?
Mm.
Like, okay,
And that's
and
the
then
oh,
that's what I try to do. That's what I strive to do.
that's beautiful,
So
man. That's
yeah,
so
well, thank
cool.
you.
Well, and I think that on a broader scale, the whole concept of the what is the actual name for it? Chaotic versus lawful, the alignment spectrum.
Alignment. Mhm.
I have found that a super interesting way to frame like decision making in real life.
Sure.
Like,
Mhm.
I always another one of those kind of entrenchments I have, I always play chaotic good. And that's kind of like if I get to the end of the school year and a kid has a 59.5, has that kid done the right thing? Are they a good person? Like those questions come up. Do you bump the kid up or don't you? And it's like you kind of get to decision make there. And it's like the chaotic good thing. If that's a good kid, the lawful good thing would be nope, give him his grade, learn a lesson, da 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 da. But the chaotic good thing is to look at that as a whole. And I came across and I sort of kind of revert to that. It's like it's the right thing. Yeah, you revert to those like like not like characters. Like what is the right thing? And it's an interesting way to look at the world. Have you ever seen
Mhm.
the movie Training Day?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I watched that movie recently because somebody had told me watch it with the concept of chaotic good and lawful good in your mind.
Oh yeah.
And it is so funny how almost heavy-handed it is. If you're looking at it
Mm,
as an analysis of lawful good versus chaotic good, it beats you over the head with that conflict, like the whole movie. It's really an interesting way to frame a lot of things, but in a little
right.
microscope, that movie is an interesting watch with that in mind.
Yeah, I imagine I can definitely see how there would be, especially certain scenes where
Oh yeah,
it definitely would fall to that.
for
Um,
sure. For sure.
that's awesome.
So
Yeah, like I've been in games, you know, alignment's no longer a part of the game, and I think in some ways it's a good thing.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
I usually will still kind of think about it that way
Mm,
when I'm making
mhm.
a character, just because that's what I'm used to thinking about
Sure.
from playing
It's a
older
habit.
editions.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's um, it's always been interesting when there are people at the table who are willing to really take that to extremes is not the right word, but to really push that, you know, like
Mm,
really play a lawful character
mhm,
versus somebody who is, you know, playing their characters genuinely chaotic.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
I've seen it go sideways as well, but
Oh,
when the
sure.
players who are doing it for the right reasons, it can
Mhm.
lead to some really interesting philosophical arguments.
Well, sure. And I think, some players are a little bit more rigid with it,
Mhm.
whereas some treat it like a guideline. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I kinda treat it as more of a guideline. There are some instances where my character will be more lawful, but, you know, it's I don't disagree with it. It shouldn't be like a specifically when you associate it with, like, evil races. I think that that's a
Mhm.
problem.
Mhm.
I think that shouldn't be
Yeah,
a
I
part of
agree.
it. But, I don't disagree with it being a framework, being a suggestion. Like, how does your character think about things? How do they feel about things? Are they truly just, like, floating around on the wind like Forrest Gump would say, or are they, um more rigid in their mindset. I think that that's kind of an interesting way to begin a character at the very least, and then let them develop from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it at least gives you kind of a framework
For
to
sure.
fall back on, if nothing
Exactly.
else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Okay, so oftentimes we as game masters and as players need to portray character qualities that are different than our own.
Mm.
Um, we may need to represent someone who is vastly more intelligent or more tragic, for example.
Mhm.
But we've talked about borrowing confidence from
Mm.
another character that we might play. But what are some ways that one might portray a character who is meant to be far more confident than we actually feel?
Mm. Um, I mean, like, if you're looking for bullet points, like, I mean, I think that this sort of is along with our theme of faking it, but how to fake it. Instruction manual. Um, take the lead. Be the one to choose the restaurant when everybody's like, "I don't care." Um, you know, take the bull by the horns every opportunity. Um, and the kind of interesting thing is you get to choose whether your character is gonna be a dick about it. You know, you can be a good
Very
character
true.
and still be a little bit of an asshole. So it's like be the person that takes the bull by the horns, or if you're gonna be a dick about it, be like, "You don't get to make decisions here. I make decisions here." And that's, it's kind of it's a confidence thing, but, I think that's it. Jump in hard. I think in most situations, anytime where it's applicable, take the lead, be the one in front, draw your sword first. I think that's it, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's 100% on point.
What do you think? What do you have to so if you
Um,
are playing a
yeah, go
character
ahead, please.
beyond you, what is your tip?
Um, my well, one of the things that I do all the time is I use a lot of artwork whenever I play games, and bringing up the portrait that I've decided on for a particular NPC when I'm running the game, or the art that
Mm,
I've chosen to represent my character,
mm,
pulling that up so that I can kind of look into their face when I'm performing as them helps me a ton. It gives me a lot of information as far as like the way they hold themselves, the expression that they're exhibiting on their face, how much or how little they've spent on their outward appearance,
mm,
you know, everything. That all is very informative to me in the way that I'm going to start portraying them, because my brain starts drawing all these little tiny connections to where I've seen those kinds of things in movies and television and comic books and things before. And my
mm.
brain starts to kind of put together this weird amalgamation of what I think works from those different people. And it's
Wow.
like, oh, this person is very physically fit. Well, obviously, that means that they spend a lot of time either doing a hard job, or they spend time dedicated to bulking up their body.
Right.
And that's two very clearly distinct things that I could draw from to portray an NPC. Either, you know, I grew up in the field, so that also means, you know, my hands are probably going to be very calloused. I can go forever and ever and ever and not complain. And you know,
Right.
that gives me one thing I could portray. Or the other side is maybe I'm cognizant of my outward appearance. Maybe it's important to my character for some reason. Why is that? You know, okay, then obviously they're going to be probably a lot more mindful about the way that they keep their hair done, you know, the clothes that they buy, how much money they're willing to spend on those things.
Wow.
All of that kind of stuff starts to spider out away from that. So I think for a character who is more confident than I really am, again, it's kind of one of two ways. Are they confident for good reason, or are they an arrogant shithead?
Yes. Yes.
Both are really great decisions, directions to take the character, and they're both really fun to play.
Absolutely.
More often than not, no, especially when I'm running a game, I usually am trying to play villains, antagonists in some way or another. So I really, really find that I enjoy playing despicable people.
Dude, that is so funny you would say that. Just last night on Scribes and Scrolls, Jake threw a curveball that one of our characters came across an evil version of my character.
Ooh,
and he said it's not really you, and I'm like, I know. And I was just like, but he's like, are you can you, and I was like, yeah. And I turned my light on red, like the color red. And I was like, I'm so ready. And so I did. I was an absolute evil bitch for about 10 minutes. And it's like, I get it. Like it's I understand how that can be fun to play. And have you ever played like an evil one shot?
We tried once upon a time, but it was my home group, and it fell apart very quickly. We all started fighting each other, and like it went nowhere.
Fair.
But
I challenge you to try again, because done well, it is. Oh, it's delightful. You feel icky in the best possible way.
Jake
that makes sense.
Ran a game where we all played ancient dragons of different colors, and I got to play an ancient red dragon, and it was absolutely a blast. I think I ate an entire cart full of sheep, and then also ate the peasant. After I talked to him, of course, and when he disappointed me, and I found out what village he was from, I killed him, and then I flew off to go burn his entire village to the ground. Wow. So again, like, it's really fun to play the bad guy. Every once in a while, somebody will ask me to come and guest on their show, and to play a villain, and I'm like, yes, send me everything you have, and I will do everything I
will
can
destroy
to make them.
Exactly.
They're like, don't worry about killing my players. I was like, oh, I wasn't. That's your problem.
Funny you should mention that. Well, anyway, but yeah, no.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I love it. But that's because as a player, I typically try to play the most heroic type people that I usually can. That's my jam when I'm playing. But when I'm running, watch out.
Oh my god. That's awesome.
So, speaking of that kind of character, how far can confidence be built up before it strays into an unhealthy mindset? When does it pass a reasonable level of humility and it simply becomes arrogance?
That's a great question. I think as long as you are building your confidence within like the group, like around other people, and as long as you are focused on them and not all on yourself, I'm not sure it can get to that stage. When it gets bad is when you are, I think where the line is crossed is where you are genuinely unconcerned about others. I think that's that's generally where it gets to a point where it's not healthy anymore, and it is arrogance at that point. But as long as you are maintaining a relationship with other people, and as long as you are cognizant of their feelings and taking care of others, I mean, I hate to say it's like the answer is love, but that's kind of like, as long as you care about other people and you're a caring person, I think that's ultimately, I don't think you can get to that stage if you still care about other people. You know what I mean? As long as you're wanting to take care of others.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think as long as you're building your confidence, and you can still also build the confidence of the other people around you, um, that you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's not a one person show, especially speaking in gaming terms.
Sure.
All of you are in this together. And I think for me, similarly, the line is, your confidence should never come at the expense of someone else's.
Sure. That's
Um,
a good, yes.
yeah,
Yes, yes,
you
yes.
should never have to put other people down or cast them in shadow in
Mm,
order to feel good about yourself,
yeah.
to feel better. And if you
Yep.
are doing that, then your confidence is false and it's
Mm-hmm.
arrogance instead, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
That's called bullying. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not, there's
exactly.
a freaking name for that. And no,
Yeah.
that's a good point. It's all interpersonal. And I think as long as you are, like you said, as long as you're not putting others down to step up, then it's self-made, and it's okay to be proud if you are self-made that way. I think that's fine too. But if you stepped on others to get there, that's arrogance.
Yep. Seeing some of that play out recently too.
Oh, geez, yeah.
It's so
Yep,
bad.
yep. Oh, geez.
Don't
Yeah,
even get me started.
mhm.
Um,
Don't get me
yeah,
started. Don't
forget
get me
about it.
started. Forget about it.
Um, so my last point that I wanted to bring up, and you've kind of mentioned it a little here and there. So you're a teacher as well as a coach for high
Mhm,
school students.
mhm,
Um, that age for children is such a crucial time for
mm,
developing self identity and
mhm,
awareness,
mhm,
at a time when confidence in oneself can easily be crushed, no less,
mm.
and that can cause rippling effects that last long into adulthood. How much are you aware of nurturing and feeding your students' self-esteem as opposed to, say, with your peers?
I mean, I think that's the most important part of my job. I mean, I teach algebra. 90% of what I do is not algebra. And it's or basketball or track. It's so much getting, now more than ever, getting kids to think highly of themselves, getting kids to be confident. And I tell kids about my journey all the time. Like, it's not it's like, when I tell them, I say fake it. I say fake it for a while. See how it feels to be confident, and how people will treat you differently, and how you will see yourself. And faking it is a poor way to describe it, because then you're being fake. But it's like, test it out. And that's kind of what I try to get kids to be proud of their strengths. And there's a certain amount, there's some kids, every kid is different. Some kids need humility, some kids need the opposite of that. Some, and being able to take each kid and kind of write a prescription, more or less, is that's the art. It's kind of hokey to say, like, teaching is an art form, but it really kind of is. Like, and there's no
No.
there's no textbook that you can learn that from, and it's not a one size fits all. So, but my biggest thing, I try to get kids to be confident in themselves. I try to get kids to think highly of themselves enough that they they have good relationships, and they treat others kindly, and those are the biggies. And that's I think the most important part of what I do.
Yeah, it makes me very happy to hear that.
Mm.
Yeah, my mom is a kindergarten teacher.
Oh man, God bless.
So yeah, right. She is a special
Bless
kind
her
of
heart.
a
Takes a
special kind of
special
person.
breed. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just hearing her accounts of wrestling with even some of the same things that you're talking about, even with kids that young.
Mm.
You know, a lot of them can't write yet, and the only reason that is because they've never been taught.
Mm-hmm.
They've never had an instrument put in their hand and said, "Hey, scribble these letters."
Mm-hmm.
But giving them the confidence to know that even though they're bad at something in the beginning, as the phrase goes, probably not in kindergarten, that you have to suck at something before you can be good at it.
Right. Yeah.
But the same principle, and just seeing that in practice and having somebody there tell you there is another side to this journey, this experiment. Right. You will make it through the other side at some point, and
exactly.
Trust.
Specific. 100% trust it, and that's trust the process.
Yeah.
I see it very often, specifically with math, is that a lot of parents send their kids. I teach in a pretty high poverty area, so a lot of parents send their kids to me with the one I hear all the time, and it drives me nuts. And a lot of people say it, and a lot of my non-teaching friends say it. So I'm not. It's not. Try not to take it personally, but well, the whole family's bad at math. Or, oh, they're bad at math. They struggle in math. Da 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 da. And it's like, get that shit out of your head. Get it out of your quit telling them that. Quit saying that all the time, because it matters. It matters.
Yeah.
Because then
absolutely.
they come in and they think they suck. And it's like, that's not fair. You're setting them up for failure. And math was my worst subject in school. And kids always say, like, well, how are you teaching math then? I said, because I want to guide you on that journey. At some point you gotta just freaking gut up and do it. And I said, and it can be done. And I want to get you from point A to point B. And I just think that as a teacher, especially of high school kids, it's kind of a scary thing to show weakness. They'll go for the throat, man. They're like cheetahs. But it's important. It's important for them to hear that, and to know that, like you mentioned, to fail and have it be okay. And because it's going to happen. Math is hard and it's going to happen, but nothing bad's going to happen to you. It's part of it. It's part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And, at a certain point, it goes back to a lot of these questions that we've kind of addressed tonight. And, how do you find the confidence, and how do you push yourself past the precipice, and all these kinds of things? When one of the things about understanding that I no longer really gave a shit about what other people think about me. Now, as a creative, I have not succeeded in that regard yet.
Oh, no.
As a creative, I will always be very, very sensitive to, whether or not I measure up. And for whatever reason, that's just always going to be the case. But
again, because you care.
Yeah, that's true.
It's okay.
But I think there's a part of the process that you come to at some point where you become okay with looking like a fool, with looking like an asshole, and that not having the same weight to it that you might have given it when you're younger. If somebody's going to laugh at me for something that I was doing, then fine. I've had people do a lot worse things to me than laugh at me.
Yeah.
And if they're really making a scene out of it, then they just get a middle finger, and it's like, fuck you. I tried.
Right. Exactly. At least I'm up here.
But yeah, exactly. But, being okay with falling down and just understanding that you can get back up afterwards.
Absolutely. And just, you mentioned getting laughed at, sticking up for yourself. That's something that I'm kind of conflict avoidant, and I think we all are to an extent, but I've gotten good results out of standing up for yourself. And I think so many people in this digital age are not used to getting checked if they're being a dick.
Truth.
It's like I had to tell somebody, like, it made a joke at my expense, and it's fine. Like, I can take ribbing, but like, so I laughed it off. But then they kept going and kept going and kept going. And this is in my adult life, and there were a lot of people around. And I remember I said, "Hey," I said, "Fuck you, man," and the room went silent because it was kind of in a quasi professional setting, and that guy is the nicest guy on the planet. He'll give you the shirt off his back, and he and I have like a great relationship now. But it's just like people are not used to seeing boundaries. And
Sure.
I think, you know what I mean? So I think that that's part of the confidence too, creating that, just all good things. Nothing bad comes from having a good healthy amount of confidence, I think.
Very, very true. And yeah, again, like touching back on what I was saying before, the same thing that I fall back on a lot is, comfort and communication. Communicating when things are
Exactly.
not right, communicating
Yes.
when you're not getting what you need out of the relationship.
Mhm.
That's important,
Mhm.
because that other person may not realize that they're not giving you what you need from them.
Right. Right.
And if you don't tell them, then you are partially to blame in that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, yeah.
healthy boundaries is
100.
absolutely crucial.
And again, it comes from a place too of knowing that it's like nobody's the bad guy in that situation.
Mhm,
This guy is truly a great guy, but just was I think psychologically almost testing the boundaries. I was new at the time,
mhm.
and it's okay that he found him, and I'm cool, and he's cool, and it's just it's good things, man. It's good things.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of good things, this has been incredible, Carrie. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. This has been a
Yeah,
blast.
yeah. Like I said, I love the opportunity that I get doing this show to sit down with people and discuss this kind of stuff.
Mm,
Again, everything ranging from gaming to psychology to
mm,
how our paths crossed, all of that kind of stuff. I love just kind of sitting here and getting the chance to chat with people.
it's
Um,
very cool.
there's so many amazing people that are a part of this hobby.
Mm,
So many people with just incredible amounts of intelligence and emotional maturity, and the fact that almost every single person comes from a different walk of life,
mm.
um, gives me the opportunity to, again, like I talked about earlier, to broaden my own horizons, to see
Yes.
things from point of views that I might not have considered before,
Mhm,
and to understand better by doing that, um,
mhm,
and being able to learn new tips and tricks and techniques and stuff about gaming that, again, that come from different ways of thinking,
for
that
sure.
I wouldn't settle on myself, by myself,
Mhm,
but being able to kind of then pick those things, those ideas, and be able to use what's going to work for me the best that I
mhm,
can, both in my life and in gaming,
for sure.
to better myself, in both arenas.
Mhm.
Um, so I was really, really happy, whenever you agreed to be a guest on the show. So
I was so
um,
happy to be invited. Like, I had
yeah,
seen you advertising the show, and I was just like, when you asked, I was like, "Oh my god, yeah." That's I was pumped. This has been really cool.
good, good. Yeah, and hopefully, at some point we get to sit down at another table and game some more together at some point in the
Anytime.
future. Awesome.
Anytime.
Well, everybody, it is a busy, busy week here at the channel. It might not all be going down here at the channel, but in the various circles that I run in all through the weekend, you'll be able to find me on various Twitch places and YouTube places and all these kinds of things that are happening. Tomorrow night, we'll be over on Jarl DM on Twitch for the second episode of Spirit Guardians, where we will do similar to what we did tonight, kind of talking about campaign issues and working people through problems that they might be having at their table.
Mm,
And then Thursday night, there's games. Friday night, there's games, all through the weekend.
all the games.
So, yeah, all the games, all the time. So, same bat channel, same bat time, something like that. But
I love it.
this is incredible. Thank you, everybody, for watching this evening, whether you watched live with us or whether you may be tuning in at some point down the road in the future. it is deeply appreciated. So thank you very, very much for tuning in. If you like this kind of content, do all the stuff, hit the like button, subscribe, and all that business. And we'll be back next month with another episode. And in the meantime, as I said, lots of games. So love you all. I hope that the rest of the week goes well. Be kind to each other, please. It is free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it makes you feel better, believe it or not. So be kind and rewind, because why not?
You never know.
Until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.